hope is not a plan. Using AI since 2018 has helped us understand its limitations already. The changes that ChatGPT has brought, changes that Google Bard is bringing, which make some business ideas and opportunities we have a reality.
I'm here today with Tracy Hazzard. Tracy's a media expert, over 3,000 interviews under her belt, CEO of Podetize, the largest post-production company for podcasts. Where are we at today?
I would say a transcript was probably about 70% accurate, maybe in 2020. Now, today, we can get it closer to 90% accurate. And now it can do some of these things in a much broader, quicker way than having a manual editor go through and do it.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome everyone once again to 15-Minute Friday. Easy to implement business tips for busy people who want to learn more and do better in the shortest amount of time possible. So I know hungry business people like yourself are busy. We'll dive right into it. I'm here today with Tracy Hazzard. Tracy, what's happening? How are you?
Hey, Ben. So glad to see you again.
Yeah, I was on the Binge Factor, correct?
That's right.
We'll add that to the show.
It was probably about a month ago from when we were recording this.
So several months probably from in between. But that's in the show notes. This isn't about me. It's about Tracy. And to give a quick intro, if someone hasn't caught the Binge Factor, Tracy's a media expert. Over 3,000 interviews under her belt, and as CEO of Podetize, the largest post-production company for podcasts, and a founding sponsor of the nonprofit Podcasters United, she champions podcast and business growth. Tracy hosts renowned shows like The Binge Factor, which I was humbled to be a part of, and Feed Your Brand, plus countless other shows previously. I mean, you've done it all. And since you've done it all, I'm sure I missed a ton. I try to keep the bio short. What did we miss that you think would be relevant to bring up?
Well, I wrote an ink column for about 4 years on disruptive innovation. So I am an expert in all things disruptive. And my very first podcast was on 3D printing. So it gives you a sign of I was always on the cutting edge of everything. And we've been using AI since 2018, actually actively within our entire business. So it's behind the scenes. No one really knew we were using it, but we were using it from the beginning.
Since 2018, I mean, 2022, everyone's suddenly on ChatGPT. You guys have been doing this for 5 years.
That's right. Yeah. And what we've learned is so different from what I'm going to say the chat is out there.
Well, we'll talk more. I like to start the episode with a quote because a lot of my audience likes that motivational tweetable. Anything on your heart and mind that you want to bring to the audience today?
We almost use this quote as a mantra here, and that is hope is not a plan. We have been saying this for decades, and hope is not a plan because without action, no amount of mindset, no amount of manifestation can happen. You actually have to take a step. And so with that means that you can't just sit back and hope that your business is going to be successful. You have to make it happen.
Such a great way to start. So hope is not a plan. And to bridge the gap, you had mentioned disruption and AI and hoping that our job security is there, or hoping that the AI is going to be a perfect copywriter and we don't have to touch a pen ever again. And having these assumptions aren't smart, right? What is smart? What's the best way for us to start treating AI?
Well, we've done this in our business regularly. It's how we ended up in podcasting, right? We decide that something sounds like it's worth exploring, and we go in and we actively try it, use it. We don't talk about it unless we are using it. And that's the way we really start to find out what's the truth? Where does this lie? Where's the opportunities that we could be utilizing this? So using AI since 2018 has helped us understand its limitations already. We also can see the changes that ChatGPT has brought, changes that Google Bard is bringing, there's some really great things that it couldn't do back in 2018, 2019 that it can do now, which makes some business ideas and opportunities we have a reality.
Let's look at that transition evolution. We're going to focus on now, but I want to figure out where it started. So 2018, what kind of AI were you using? What was accessible? Most people weren't touching it at that time. What were you using it for?
Yeah, what we're seeing in the Chat GPT model is this conversational AI. And what we were able to use was more of the transcription model AI, if you want to think of it like that. So we could take our videos and take our audios and have it transcribe. But what we really found was that there was not enough AI involved in it in the early days. And so the tools that we were using, which are really popular out there, were more like automations than they were intelligence. And what we found was that it was the failure to all of the automations that were around and the AI around transcription were failing because they were this big general group of information that was being generalized across all these different industries and all these different processes. But we actually had a loop that we could create, a training, a learning model. And so what we could do was we could feed back and say, if this is what the transcript looks like straight out of the AI from my podcast, and here's what it looks like when it's edited before we, as a production company, put it into the client's website, we could feed it back and get it to learn things at a faster pace. And we could get it to learn industry lingo. We could get it to learn the way that I speak and start to understand me personally, so it could anticipate me better. And I could get it to understand, I'm going to call it branding, styling. So if I typically change things or change things regularly, it would understand the pattern of that. So it was really smarter after we were doing these layers and rounds of learning.
That's brilliant, Tracy. And now it's like to fruition. Like what is the difference between the intelligence then versus you doing that exact same procedure now? It's mind-blowing, right? Where are we at today?
Well, it's so mind-blowing that what is happening right now is that our starting point has come up a lot. So where I would say a transcript was probably about 70% accurate, maybe in 2020. Now, today, we can get it closer to 90% accurate. And then we can bridge the gap on that last 10% by doing rounds with the conversation back and forth. So saying, okay, clean up and take out this and add this. And can you remove any mentions of this? And now it can do some of these things in a much broader, quicker way than having a manual editor go through and do it.
Makes sense. And for podcasting, it's brilliant. But let's fair to assume not every individual listener is a podcaster. But again, let's assume that they've written something in a journal or piece of content. Maybe they've done a live presentation. Maybe they have investor presentations or sales presentations. So they've created something that can be recorded, or it's already in written form. How would they take that piece of content and use the AI to do? Will you tell us? What should they? Let's use an example. You have an investor presentation. Could you repurpose that or different? You tell me.
So I think the biggest decision that you have to make as a company is, do I want this information internal only or external? Is it okay if it's free, if it's freely distributed, if the AIs out there are going to learn from it, if other people can see it? An investor presentation, I might not want anyone to see. That needs to stay internal. My internal training programs, I don't necessarily want anyone to see. So we have to think about using closed AIs and open AIs. And then OpenAI is, of course, the name of, of the module. But the idea of it being open-ended and open to the public matters in what you do. All of my content, everything that I'm already putting out as video, audio, blog, any of those things are public facing. So I don't mind utilizing them and repurposing them into shorts, into articles, into all the different ways. And I can use, there's about 30 different apps that have come out that you could use at any given time. So it might not be useful to pick one and use it. It may be helpful to use multiples. And the reason for that is because they're changing and they're changing so quickly. For me, I have a really streamlined team and workflow. So internally, I need to pick an AI and standardize on that. And we don't use the same AI for everything. If we're titling an episode or creating blogs, we use Google Bard because it's smarter. It knows what a blog should be. It knows what a title should be. It's already better at SEO. I don't have to train it to do it and do it in multiple ways to get it to do that. And I don't want to make the assumption that ChatGPT or the OpenAI that one's based on has enough data for that yet. So I'm going to go to the thing that I know has the best solution for me there. The other side of that is, so if I was going to be naming a webinar, the last place I'm going to go is Bard. I'm going to go to ChatGPT because I want it to be like conversational. I want engagement. I want it to have a little fun and quirky edge. So I think about how I'm going to name things and what I'm going to do based on where I go. If I want to use email, I want to integrate it already. And if I'm already using Outlook, there's already integrations for that from Microsoft. Why not use those things? So if it really depends on you and your team and your workflow and process, but making something inline. If my team has to go out to ChatGPT, figure out what the prompts are, type that, it's never going to happen and be faster than it would be if I use the integrated tool, even if that integrated tool is 10% less accurate.
That makes sense. And it's only the beginning of the value of these tools, and I mean, do most of them integrate with one another already, or is that still kind of in the works?
So, because of my experience in 3D printing, because of watching disruptive technology for so long, watching what happens it could be all NFTs, right? If you watch what happens to those things, eventually the big companies incorporate and it sort of takes off. And the smaller companies, their role right now, and this is where I say, be really cautious. If you're building your business on somebody's tool, they're probably going to be bought out and gone tomorrow. And that's a dangerous place for you. Or this introductory price that you built everything on is definitely going to be gone tomorrow. And they're going to realize how much their internal server costs are, and they're going to start raising their prices. Right. So it's a dangerous place to standardize on something and not be able to plug it in, use it for a time, and then remove it. We don't bring something client facing. We use them behind the scenes until we really feel it's brute force tested, until we're absolutely certain they're going to hang around or they're integrated in the workflow, and we create an API solution or an integrated enterprise solution. And we've created a relationship with someone, because otherwise it's too dangerous for your long-term business sustainability. But Dropbox, Zoom, for instance, Zoom's AI is great. It does a perfectly good job. I don't need to go out and drop all of my get Otter Notes or get any of these other AIs and bring it all into ChatGPT and then create a summary. For the amount and the percentage of review of meeting notes that we create in our company, I think we make 10,000 minutes a month, like I swear, as a company. Wow. We're totally in Zoom all day long, every day. Every single US employee is like that. So we have so many minutes of it. No one has time to review the notes, right? But if a client has a question or something comes up and there's a debate about what was said, the use of that AI to find it, to recap it, to send it out, it's so easy. And why not use the tools that you're already using? That's where we fall on the scope of things, is we'll wait for them a little bit longer and then we'll utilize and integrate those tools.
Right. I mean, it sounds like at the core, like you want your products and services to be best in class. And it's easy just to jump on the magic carpet ride and try to sell the next best thing. But you're actually a student of the craft. You guys, tens of thousands of minutes, and you're paying attention and actually learning what the best way to integrate it and build the stack so it actually serves somebody.
Absolutely. And then it brings up the questions. Like, here's the questions. Who owns that transcript? Who owns the data in it? If we drop that back into the learning module, can we give what it learned back to Bard? Can we give what it learned back to Chat GPT and OpenAI? Is that our ownership, or is it your voice because it's your podcast that it learned from? Who owns that in the process? This comes to your terms and conditions, right?
Sure.
And so what we want to make sure is that we've decided in this process, because we've had to think about these things as these choices come up to us. It's like, look, we got an offer to get a cheaper server usage of the AI if we allowed it to learn from our transcripts. This is a service that we're being paid for. Is that the right thing to do? Have to think about that. Well, it is the right thing to do if we maintain our costs and keep them inexpensive to our clients. If it means that I'd have to double my prices to my clients, then that's not good for them. They're benefiting from the discount of that. But I do have to disclose it to them. They need to know if they're going to opt out of that, then their price is going to double and I'm going to have to use an outside tool. These are the things we have to think about, is like, what is going to be our pricing? What is going to be our model? What are going to be our terms? How does this impact? And is it really in the best interest of our clients, our customers, our business in general? And the ethical questions come up on this. Now, I've set out an ethical set of standards. So if it's not in the best interest of the podcaster, if they're going to be quoted, if it's going to be notated that it came from their podcast and their episode, I'm actually doing them a promotion favor.
Oh, yeah.
By allowing them to be a part of some language model. So I should do it, because it's the whole point of why they're doing a podcast to begin with, is to get their voice heard and get themselves recognized. So if I can make that happen, then it's worthwhile. So if I'm going to call it annotation of where it came from is included in that process, then I should do it. I should do it because it's in their best interest.
So huge rabbit hole, but one thing that came to mind, Tracy, is what if you tell me something, we haven't recorded, you teach me something, and I start spreading the love, sharing that wisdom with others. I share it on a podcast, then it's annotated and quoted that it came from me, and now I've plagiarized your thoughts, and I'm the one being quoted for something I learned from you.
You know, that's a risk at any point when you're going out there and doing interviews or doing press. And it was actually why I stopped writing my Inc. column. At some point, Inc. magazine decided that quoting little entrepreneurs was not in their best interest. And it was so dangerous because what if I got paid for quoting you in my article, which to me was against the ethics. It was certainly not against, it was against all the terms of what I signed with them on why I would be writing in a column for them. But they can't trust me to do that properly. And so they decide to take your name off of a quote that's in my article. And when they started stripping those quotes from my article, making it sound like it came from me, then I said, that's it. This is not in my ethics and integrity. I'm no longer going to participate in writing a column anymore. And that's when I stopped because of that exact thing. So you've got to draw the line somewhere. It's happening everywhere where that dilution of what's going on with your tips, your voice. But at the same time, if my tip is going through you and making a change in someone's life, then I'm still having the impact that I want. And that's why I'm going out there and freely sharing my information.
What a selfless approach. Like, as long as the impact gets there and we help people, my work's done.
That's right.
I love this. It's time flies. We're not done yet. Time flies so fast, though. I want everybody to grab a pen, pencil, pull over the car, or you can always kind of just screenshot this spot and come back to it. Before we give an assignment, how can I support you? How can the listener support you? How do we get into the world of Tracy and learn? I feel like we just touched the surface. We didn't even scratch it entirely yet. So how do I learn more from you?
Well, absolutely. Check out my podcast, right?
Yeah.
If you can go into any podcast app, type Tracy Hazzard with 2 Z's for Hazard, like the Dukes of. And if you do that, you're going to find all the interviews I've done, which have been hundreds. all the podcasts, I think I've launched 7. And I think by the time this one airs, there will be a new one because I launch a brand new one every single year. So I can see what it's like for my clients. So there's so much information out there. There's bound to be some place where I can serve you. And I know if I serve you, you're going to recommend me to someone who needs my help. And that is serving me back.
Amen to that. And I'll make sure those are all in the notes, unless you launch one somewhere in the interim and I don't hear about it. But if you do launch
I will send you the info, Ben.
Please send me that info because I want to subscribe immediately. Integration assignment, because this was a lot of information. Let's assume that the listener is on different levels. Some of them might be beginners. How can they take some of this insight and as early as right now or today, or as long as it being in their calendar to do ASAP, how can they take some of it and start implementing it quickly? What were your thoughts on that would be?
So I'm a big proponent of action taking. It doesn't matter how big that action is. In fact, the smaller, the better, right? Because we're more likely to take it if it's a small action. But we must take action on something that we want. Hope is not a plan. Going back to that quote that I said at the beginning, when we want to put a plan in place, we don't always know every step that's going to unfold in front of us until we take that first step. So making sure that we have some action that we can take. And I like to take continual and constant action. So if I can make a podcast, I'm going to do it every single week, consistently and constantly. I need to make sure that that action is something that's sustainable for me. That's why I say take it small and not big, because if you can dig small, you can create repeat action on that. So if you're having trouble recording your podcast, for example, one of the best ways to do it is to find an accountability point for yourself. I am always going to show up for someone who books a call with me. Never going to happen that I'm not going to show up unless I'm absolutely dying, right? Like I am going to show up. So by making the bookings happen each week, I am going to show up and record my podcast. It's going to happen. So making sure that you can help hold yourself accountable on that action is just as important as the action you take. So making sure that you can figure out the accountability for that action is going to be critical for you to make sustainable results out of it.
So it's more than just the idea. It's more than just the thought and the knowledge of the action. It's the accountability and the consistency of doing that action over time.
Exactly. So going back to this idea of AI and doing, right? Trying it, doing it. It's so critically important. If you want to do that, say, hey, I have got this thing that I do every single week. It's agonizing. I got to title my episodes. I got to title my articles. I've got to do something or title an email. And I hate doing it. Go use a tool. Try it for that one thing and do it for a month. See how it is. Every time you need to do it, you drop into your tool, your AI tool, you're going to learn really quickly how to use ChatGPT or Bard, and you're going to learn how you can best apply that, and you're going to learn if it has any value. And from that learning, you'll be able to get ideas and apply, and it will cascade into the next step for you.
I'm wondering, Tracy, if everybody were to open up ChatGPT and write about how much they love Tracy Hazzard and how incredible she is and how great of her show is, and just say, check this for grammar and write slightly more compelling, would we train ChatGPT just to think Tracy Hazzard's the greatest thing on earth? Because if that's possible, let's try it.
Oh, that would be awesome. You know what I did that was really funny? You'll love this little story, is that my creative director is so quirky and he writes the funniest copy on our stuff. And they're always like slightly geeky and snarky. And so, on occasion, but in a really funny way. And so I thought, it's his birthday. We need to make a social media post within our team. I'm going to go into ChatGPT and ask it to write it. And because we use the tool so often and drop in information from him, the style was already in there and it was right the first time. Like it was perfect the first time. I told him it was a creative director. I told him his name. I told him what to do. And the next thing I know, I had the perfect social media copy that just totally reflected him and his job and what he adds to our team, because it does learn you.
Tracy, I just want to, this is 15-minute Friday. We always go over. And so I don't have to rename it 50-minute Friday. We'll stop the conversation now. But let's continue to chat, collaborate, and add value. I appreciate all you do.
Oh, I appreciate you, Ben. And thank you for putting out your podcast.